How do I empty machines in Mekanism? That is what I'm going to show you today, and it will include items, it will include fluids, and it will include gases. So we're going to look at all of the different ways that we can actually empty our machines in Mekanism. This will work for all versions of Mekanism as well, whether you're playing on 1.12 or 1.20, or anything in between, of course. So the first thing first, how are we going to empty items out of our machines? Well, if we go into our machine, we can go to side config. And you can see here we are on items config. We can put auto eject on and off, and it will automatically eject items from the machine. Or we can use the side configurator here on the screen, where here we have put the right as the output and the top as the input. We can also put the top to the output. We can then also, if we don't want to go into the machine interface, use our configurator to do this. And I can shift and then scroll on my configurator up to items, so configurate items. And when I hover that over the machine, you can see it's showing blue on the top, blue on the right, and you can see a sort of chest icon vaguely, and red on the front. And I can actually shift and right click, and it will actually do, input and output, etc. on there as well. The same way that if we go into the machine and go onto the side config to do this. And that is how you're going to empty machines for items. How are we then going to empty our machines from liquids and gases? Well, for that, we're not going to use the configurator. We're going to use a gauge dropper. How do we make the gauge dropper? Well, in standard Minecraft, it is the osmium ingot from Mekanism and some stained glass. Of course, if you are playing a mod pack, they may have changed the recipe. Simply, we're going to go into our machine, and you can actually see in this machine that there is not enough output room for our deuterium. We've got heavy water that's turning into oxygen and deuterium. Now, because this has maxed out, we can't then obviously turn any more heavy water into oxygen. So let's take this example as we need oxygen and we don't care about the deuterium. This little button on the left here, idle, we can change to dump excess, meaning it'll still make deuterium, but it's only going to dump the excess once the machine is full, meaning we can carry on making oxygen and dumping any excess deuterium. We can also click this again to just say dumping, and it will dump all deuterium made, not just the excess amount or the overflow. And we can do this on the right hand side for oxygen as well. If, however, we don't want to do that, we can use our gauge dropper, and you can see here that deuterium 366 millibuckets is in our gauge dropper. We can actually pick up the gauge dropper in our inventory while we're in the interface and left click the deuterium tank to empty it. We can then shift right click outside of the machine to empty the gauge dropper. Going back into it, you can see we're now full on oxygen. I can pick up my gauge dropper, left click oxygen. You can now see the gauge dropper is full of oxygen, shift right click, and I'm going to empty the gauge dropper. I can also do this with the input slot here, taking out the heavy water. Maybe you've accidentally input a resource into your machine that is a gas or liquid and you want to empty that and use something else. You can do that in this slot just the same. It didn't remove all of the heavy water because the gauge dropper is full. It can only store 16,000. But again, just shift right click on the floor. It's not going to put a puddle. It will actually just do it into the abyss, if you will. I can come back in and empty out the rest of the heavy water. And that is how you will empty machines in Mekanism. If you want to watch other mod tutorials, like for Mekanism or other mods, do check out this playlist here. I actually do multiple different game mod tutorials on this channel, and this playlist is for all the Minecraft ones. You may also want to check out my Patreon in the description below, where you can ask me one-on-one for any additional help with any troubles you may be having, and it also supports the channel.